Coskata process is different in that it uses gasification, so we're able to use 100% of the feedstock and convert that towards ethanol. The other differentiating factor is that the Coskata process, because of the gasification, can use materials that would not be available for enzymatic processes, such as recycling of old tires or municipal solid waste. Those starting materials would not be able to be treated by conventional enzymes that we're aware of today and converted into sugars, because they're not a sugar-based starting material, they're petroleum-based. Enzymatic processes tend to be batch-wise in nature. The Coskata process is a continuous fermentation process. And while they're taking soluble sugars and digesting those to ethanol, we're taking synthesis gas from that gasification step and using that to convert that into ethanol. So our bacteria are completely different than the yeast that's traditionally used in the sugar conversion processes. So if you can imagine, the batch-wise fermentation process would be sort of like cooking pasta. You're going to start with a pot of water, you're going to put the raw materials in it, you cook them up, and when you're done you take the pasta out and the water's waste. In the Coskata process, what we're able to do is actually recycle that water, so we continuously recover the ethanol from the process, and the bottoms from our recovery process go right back into the fermentation. So our fermentation runs for thousands of hours rather than just a few days like the traditional corn processes, or as my understanding of the enzymatic processes. By our calculations, over 90% of the chemical energy that's in the synthesis gas is converted into ethanol in our process, which really distinguishes the Coskata process above the competitive processes. And in that process, we are able to realize up to an 84% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions relative to the use of petroleum in automobiles. Your body needs trace minerals and nutrients. The bacteria need exactly the same things. And so it's one thing to have a genetically improved organism. It's a completely different thing to understand and facilitate those chemical processes with the trace minerals that are necessary. And so we'll identify improved strains, but then we need to feed and care for them properly. And those nutritional requirements change as a function of time on the age of the organism. So early in the fermentation process, the bacteria need a different set of nutrients and trace minerals than they need later on. So just like baby formula is different than Ensure, the same thing happens in our fermentation processes. And so learning how to manage that across the life cycle and then optimize the bacteria's performance as a function of time over thousands of hours that we're operating our fermenters is the goal of that fermentation development group.